Amira didn't sleep that night. She tried. She lay in her small room, curled beneath a blanket that could barely keep the cold away, staring at the ceiling that felt too quiet, too still after everything that happened. But her body refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jaiwan's face, too close, far too close, his breath warm against her skin, his voice rough with restraint. "If you touch me again, I won't walk away this time." A warning. A promise. A truth he wished he never said. Her heart had been racing since the moment he left her pressed against that office wall. She could still feel the ghost of his presence, the echo of something that shouldn't have happened, something she wasn't sure she wanted to stop if it happened again. Around 3 a.m, she finally drifted into a light sleep. But an hour later, gentle footsteps made her sit up. She held her breath, listening. Those steps were too controlled, too deliberate to be a normal staff member. They moved with purpose, quiet yet unmistakably strong. She slipped out of bed and opened her door just a crack. Jaiwan stood in the hallway. He wasn't facing her. He leaned one hand against the wall, his head lowered like he'd been standing there longer than he meant to. His fitted black shirt clung to his frame, the tattoos on his hands dark against the dim hallway lighting. His shoulders rose and fell in slow, steady breaths, but she could tell something was weighing on him. "Jaiwan," she whispered before she could stop herself. His head lifted. He didn't turn right away, as if debating whether to walk away or acknowledge her. But then he exhaled softly and looked over his shoulder. "Come downstairs," he said. No emotion. No warmth. Just quiet command. Not once did he look directly at her body. Not once did his voice betray the tension from earlier. But his eyes, those intense, dark eyes, said everything he refused to speak aloud. She stepped out of her room, nerves tightening around her like invisible hands. He didn't move until she drew close. Then he walked ahead of her down the stairs, silent, unreadable. The living room lights were dimmed, and the air felt heavier than before, charged with something she couldn't name. He stood near the table, hands loosely at his sides, the tattoo on his neck catching the warm lamplight like inked shadows. "What happened earlier?" she asked, voice softer than she intended. He didn't turn. "You heard it." "I didn't see anything." "And you shouldn't." His tone sharpened a little, not at her, but at whoever forced this moment to exist. Amira hesitated. Was someone hurt? At that, he finally faced her. His eyes locked onto hers, direct, intense, filled with a seriousness that drained the warmth from the room. "You were almost dragged into something you shouldn't have seen," he said. "One of my staff was working with someone outside, recording conversations, gathering information." Her breath caught. "For what?" "To expose me," he said simply, "or to sell information about me." She swallowed, "And they were close to where I work." He nodded once, slowly, deliberately. Which meant the person wasn't just spying on him, they were spying around her. Amira stiffened. "Why would anyone come near me?" That was when his expression changed, barely, but enough. His jaw flexed, a sign of frustration or something deeper. "If someone wants to get to me," Jaiwan said quietly, "they'll reach for the thing I won't let them touch." Her heartbeat stumbled. "Jaiwan," she breathed, unsure what she wanted to ask. "What?" he asked, voice low, guarded. "You're not saying I'm in danger," he cut in. "Yes." She froze. He took a step closer. Not threatening, controlled, steady, like he was fighting the urge to take more than just one step. "I'm not trying to frighten you," he said, softer now. "But you need to understand. You didn't come here to be part of all this. You were supposed to clean, earn your paycheck, and stay invisible. But you're not invisible, Amira." His gaze lowered for half a second. Her breath hitched. She felt exposed, seen, stripped of whatever distance she thought existed between them. "You stood out the day you walked in," he finished. Her chest tightened. She didn't know if he meant her work, her presence, or her body. God, she hoped it was that last one. But every part of him looked too tense, too conflicted for it to be anything simple. She looked away. "I don't want trouble. I didn't mean to attract any." "You didn't attract anything," he said sharply. "Someone else brought trouble into this house, not you." She looked back at him. "But I'm still in it." His silence was confirmation enough. Amira looked down at her hands, fingers curling anxiously. Maybe I should go. Maybe it's better if I leave. I don't want to be in the middle of whatever this is. Jaiwan's body went completely still. Leave, he repeated almost too quietly. She nodded, swallowing hard. If people are targeting your house, your staff. They're not targeting my staff, he said. They were looking for access, and access means you. Her chest tightened painfully. Why me? He stared at her like she asked the one question he didn't want to answer. It doesn't matter, he said. It does, she insisted. If I'm the reason they're coming here, then I shouldn't be here. I don't want to be used to hurt you or anyone. He took a step toward her. You're not going anywhere. Something flickered in his eyes, possessiveness, fear, something intense enough to make her heart jump to her throat. You're safer here than you'll ever be out there, he continued. That doesn't mean I want to stay, she whispered, though her voice lacked conviction. Then say it, he said, voice suddenly low and rough. Say you want to leave. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Jaiwan watched her struggle, watched the conflict in her eyes, watched the way her body betrayed her with every breath that hitched when he stepped near. Something about that made his jaw tighten again. He turned abruptly and walked toward the windows, hands curling into fists, tattoos shifting along his skin. The tension in his shoulders was unmistakable, like he was holding back a storm. She stood there, unsure what to do, whether to follow or stay quiet. But when she reached for the stack of files left on the table, anything to distract herself from the weight between them, she felt it again. His presence behind her. Close. Too close. She didn't even have to turn around to know he was watching her. Jaiwan, she whispered. You're stiff, he murmured. The words vibrated down her spine. She straightened slowly. I'm not. Relax, he said, his voice dropping even more. I'm not going to touch you. But even without touching her, her skin felt like it was burning. The warmth of his breath brushed the back of her neck. The space between their bodies narrowed without either of them meaning to. She could feel the tension rolling off him, raw, unguarded, dangerous. She turned slightly, enough to see him from the corner of her eye. And regret hit her instantly. His gaze wasn't cold. It wasn't calm. It was restrained fire. He was fighting something, fighting it hard. Do you always stand behind people like this? She whispered. No, he said. Then why are you? You know why. Her heart trembled. He stepped back suddenly, like he'd crossed a line even he didn't believe he'd cross. The distance did nothing to loosen the tension choking the room. He was breathing harder, so was she. Finally, he spoke. Go upstairs, he said quietly. Why? Because if you stay here, he said, I won't be able to think straight. Her stomach flipped so violently, she grabbed the edge of the table. He wasn't joking. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't trying to intimidate her. He was warning her against himself. She moved slowly, her knees unsteady, climbing the stairs with her pulse thundering in her ears. She didn't look back, not because she didn't want to, but because she knew if she did, everything would unravel. She reached her door, breath trembling. But before she closed it, she turned her head just enough to see the living room below. Jaiwan stood exactly where she left him. His hands were gripping the back of the couch, knuckles white, breathing ragged, tattoos flexing with every tense movement. His eyes were fixed on the floor, anywhere but her, like he was holding himself together by threads. Amira closed her door softly. And the moment she did, his head lifted. His eyes were on her door. He wasn't calm. He wasn't composed. He was losing the battle he never intended to fight. Jaiwan dragged a hand over his face, fingers pressing into his temples as if he could massage away the chaos tearing through him. He never let anyone get under his skin, not enemies, not rivals, not even the people closest to him. But this girl, this Maid, this problem he couldn't seem to control. She wasn't supposed to matter. She wasn't supposed to affect him. She wasn't supposed to look at him the way she did, with fear and defiance tangled together, with something softer hidden beneath it. He cursed it under his breath, low and sharp. He needed to get a grip. But upstairs, Amira leaned against her door with both hands, trying to steady her breathing. She could still feel the heat of his gaze even though a whole floor separated them now. Her body hadn't calmed. Her mind hadn't quieted. She didn't understand him. He could be cold, unreadable, dangerously calm. Then suddenly he was close enough to make her knees shake, voice dropping into something that felt like a touch all on its own. She didn't know which version she feared more. After several minutes, she crawled into her bed, but sleep refused her again. She stared at the ceiling, listening to every creak of the house, every sigh of wind outside. Maybe she would have eventually drifted off. But then the power cut out. Her room went pitch black. She jolted upright, heart thudding. The house fell into an unnatural silence, no hum of lights, no soft whir of the hall heater, just complete stillness. "Hello," she whispered, even though she knew no one would answer. And then footsteps. Not Jaiwan's this time. These were too light, too cautious, too intentional. Her breath froze. She reached for her phone, but the screen stayed dark, dead battery. Perfect, just perfect. The footsteps grew closer. Her instincts screamed at her to move, but she stayed frozen until a soft knock hit her door. Not gentle. Not friendly. Wrong. "Amira," a voice whispered. Not Jaiwan. Not any staff she recognized. Her lungs seized. The doorknob turned. That was all it took. She ran. She sprinted across the room, grabbed the nearest object, a heavy vase from her side table, and raised it just as the door cracked open. But before the intruder could step inside, a hand clamped around the person's collar from behind, and they were yanked backward so violently the door slammed shut again. A muffled thud. A grunt. The unmistakable sound of a punch landing. Amira backed away from the door, clutching the vase like a lifeline. Then, "Amira." Jaiwan's voice, low, controlled, but beneath that control, something lethal simmered. She opened the door slowly. The hallway lights flickered back on. And at Jaiwan's feet, a man lay groaning, one of the security staff she had seen only once or twice. His lip was split, blood dripping onto the polished floor. Jaiwan's jaw was clenched so hard the tattoo along his neck flexed with every beat of his pulse. "Pack your things," he said without looking at her. "What? Why?" "Pack your things." Each word sharper than the last. She swallowed. "Jaiwan, I don't understand." "He was coming into your room." His voice was quiet but deadly. "He wasn't checking on you, he wasn't protecting you, he was waiting." Her stomach turned. Waiting for what? For you to fall asleep. A wave of nausea hit her like a punch. Before she could respond, Jaiwan grabbed the unconscious man by the collar and dragged him down the hall like he weighed nothing. She watched, heart hammering, as he opened a closet door and practically threw the man inside before locking it with a cold finality. Then he turned to her. The look in his eyes made her step back. Not because he scared her. Because he wasn't pretending anymore. No more walls. No more distance. No more masking anything. "You're coming with me," he said. She shook her head, anxiety rising. "Jaiwan, I don't want to leave like this. I'm not giving you a choice." That should have terrified her. But instead, something inside her steadied. Because he wasn't being controlling. He wasn't being possessive. He was being protective, so protective he couldn't hide it if he tried. "Where are we going?" she whispered. "Somewhere safe. And your men." He cut her off with a humorless breath. "I don't trust anyone with you now." Her chest tightened. No one. Not a single person but him. "Come," he repeated, softer this time. "You can't stay here." She didn't argue again. She packed silently, just a bag, a few clothes, her toothbrush. Her hands were trembling, not from fear but from the rush of everything spiraling so quickly. When she stepped out, Jaiwan took her bag from her without asking and walked ahead. His back was rigid, shoulders tight, like he was barely holding something together. She followed him down the stairs, through the hallway, and toward the garage. He stopped at his black car, unlocked it, and opened the passenger door. "In," he said. Her heart jumped painfully. Being alone with him in a car wasn't exactly good for her sanity, but she didn't question it. She slid in. He walked around and got into the driver's seat, shutting the door with a dull, heavy thud that felt final. The silence inside the car was thick, like everything unsaid between them was sitting in the air, choking the space. He didn't start the engine. He just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing too slow, too controlled, as if he was one wrong move from snapping. Finally, he spoke. "You're shaking." She looked down at her hands. She hadn't even noticed. "It's cold," she lied. "No," he said quietly, "it's not." He turned to face her. And the look in his eyes. It wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even restrained anymore. It was raw. "Amira," he murmured, "look at me." She did. He reached out slowly, like he was giving her every chance to pull away, and when she didn't, his fingers brushed her jaw gently, too gently, as if she were something breakable. His touch wiped out every thought in her head. "You're scared," he said. She swallowed. Anyone would be. "That's not what I'm talking about." A shiver ran through her. He was too close. Too intense. Too honest in a way he never allowed himself to be. "I'm not scared of you," she whispered. Something in his chest tightened visibly. He didn't say anything for a long moment. He just looked at her, really looked at her, like he was memorizing every line of her face. Then he leaned back, exhaled shakily, and started the engine. "Good," he said softly. The car began to move, pulling away from the mansion and into the night. Only when they reached the empty road did he speak again. "You should have screamed." She turned toward him. "What?" "When he opened your door," he said, "you should have screamed." "I didn't have time, and I didn't know." "You were scared." His voice was a low murmur. "Scared and alone, and you didn't call for me." Her breath caught. He sounded hurt. "Joanne," she whispered. "You didn't call my name." She didn't know how to respond to that. He clenched the steering wheel again, knuckles white. "Do you know what I would have done if he touched you? If I had been 1 second later?" His voice cracked on the last word. Cracked. Her heartbeat stumbled. "Joanne, he didn't. You stopped him." "That's not the point," he forced out. "What matters is—" He cut himself short, jaw tightening hard. "What matters is you come to me when you're in danger," he finished. She swallowed. "I didn't think you wanted me near you." He turned his head sharply. "I never said that." "You didn't have to." He exhaled, shaky again, softer this time, a sound that felt like surrender. "Amara," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "the problem is that I want you too close." She froze. He didn't look at her. He didn't need to. The air inside the car thickened, heavy with the truth he shouldn't have said. Before she could speak, he slowed the car and pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a tall, modern building she didn't recognize. He parked, turned off the engine, and finally looked at her. And this time, there was no restraint. No distance. No mask. "Come upstairs," he said quietly. "Stay with me tonight." Her breath caught. Not seductive. Not suggestive. Not demanding. Just honest. "Why?" she whispered. "Because I can protect you there." A pause. "And because I need to know you're where I can see you." Her heart nearly gave out. He stepped out of the car without waiting for a response. And she followed, not because she had to, but because for the first time, she wanted to. The elevator doors closed behind them with a soft metallic thud, sealing them into a quiet, private world. The soft glow of the elevator lights reflected off the steel walls, painting faint shadows across Joanne's face, shadows that made him look even more carved, intense, unreadable. He stood beside her, tense shoulders rising and falling with controlled breaths. Amara stood perfectly still, afraid that even the slightest movement might shift whatever silent, fragile thing was happening between them. But then the elevator began to rise, and the moment it moved, Joanne's hand, large, warm, uncertain, lifted halfway, as if he intended to touch her again, but he caught himself and let it fall back to his side. It was such a small thing, but she felt it like a rush of heat. He was holding back. For her. For himself. She wasn't sure which. When they reached the top floor, the elevator opened into a private hallway, quiet, dimly lit, with dark wood floors and minimalist walls. Joanne's footsteps echoed softly as he led her forward, stopping in front of a door with a fingerprint scanner. He pressed his thumb against it. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Amara stepped inside and froze. His penthouse wasn't cold or sharp like she expected. It was warm, spacious, but not empty. Large windows revealed the Seoul skyline, lights glowing like scattered stars. The living room was modern but lived-in, dark leather couch, throw blankets, books, a half-finished glass of whiskey on a table. Joanne tossed his keys down and shrugged off his coat. "Make yourself comfortable," he said quietly. She stood in the doorway without moving. He noticed. "You're safe here," he added, softer. "I wouldn't bring you if you were." Her breath eased just a little. She stepped in further, taking in the details of his space. It felt strange to be here, too intimate, too personal. This wasn't the polished mansion, where he kept everyone at a distance. This was where Joanne lived. Where he slept. Where he existed without walls. She brushed her fingers lightly across the back of the couch, grounding herself. "I didn't know you lived somewhere else." "I don't," he said, moving to the kitchen and pouring water into a glass. "This place is for times when I need to disappear. Not many people know it exists." He set the glass on the counter. "You're the first person I've brought here." Her heart stumbled at that. She walked slowly toward him, unsure whether to thank him or question him, or run. "Why me?" she whispered. Joanne paused. His hand rested on the counter, fingers tapping once, twice, an anxious habit she'd never seen on him before. "You think I know the answer. But you act like you do." He huffed a quiet breath, almost a laugh but not quite. "Trust me, Amara. If I knew why you affect me the way you do, I'd have found a way to stop it." Her pulse jumped painfully. "Do you want to stop it?" He lifted his eyes to hers. And the answer was already there, even before he spoke. "No," he said softly, "I don't." Her chest tightened. She took a step closer without realizing. It was instinct, pulling her toward him. Maybe it pulled him toward her too, because he didn't move away this time. Instead, he leaned forward just slightly. The space between them became charged, tense, alive. "Are you hungry?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "You barely ate dinner. You were busy working." The shift in topic grounded her a little. "I'm okay." He raised an eyebrow. "Have you forgotten I watched you push your food around the plate for an hour?" She felt her cheeks warm. "It wasn't an hour." "It was," he said, grabbing a pot from the cabinet. "Sit." "What are you doing?" "Cooking." "You can cook." He shot her a look. "I'm not a savage." She laughed softly, easing into one of the kitchen bar stools. Watching him move around so naturally was strange, charming, unexpected. He didn't look like a mafia boss here. He looked like a man who lived alone, who filled silence with quiet tasks so it wouldn't swallow him. He chopped vegetables with practiced ease, hands steady. "I had to learn quick when I first left home," he admitted. "No one was making meals for us." "Us?" "My brother and I," he said. "Before the gang, before everything else." She hadn't known he had a brother. He didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. She sensed that in this room, in this quiet hour, he was giving her pieces of himself he didn't give to anyone. When he finished cooking, he plated 2 bowls of steaming stew and set one in front of her. She took a bite and nearly melted. "This is amazing." He smirked. "I'm aware." That small flash of arrogance softened into something more tender when he saw her eating like she hadn't eaten in days. "You were starving," he murmured. "I guess I was." They ate together in silence, a comfortable one. When she finished and leaned back, he took her bowl and rinsed it without being asked. He cleaned for her. That alone felt unreal. When he dried his hands, he turned to face her again, slower this time, as if unsure of what to do or say next. "Do you want to rest?" he asked. "I'm not tired." He hesitated, then walked toward her until they were close again, too close. Her breath hitched. He reached out, but instead of touching her face, he tugged gently at her sleeve. "Come," he murmured. She followed, warmth blooming low in her chest. He led her down a short hallway, stopping at a bedroom door. "This one's yours," he said. She blinked. "You're giving me a whole room." "Yes." "Why not? I don't know the couch." He stared at her like she'd said something insane. "I'm not putting you on a couch." Her lips curved. "You could have just said you have a guest room." "I don't," he admitted. "I made this one up today." Her heart flipped. "For me." "For whoever might need it," he corrected too quickly. She smiled, seeing right through him. He opened the door for her. The room was simple but beautiful. Cream bedding, soft lights, a window overlooking the city, and a warm scent that was undeniably him, faint but present in the air. She stepped inside slowly. "It's perfect," she whispered. "I'm glad," he said. But he didn't turn to leave. He stood in the doorway, staring at her like he wasn't ready to walk away, like he wasn't sure if he should. "Jaiwan." He inhaled slowly. "I don't like letting people close." She waited. "It never ends well," he continued. "For them or me." She took a step toward him. "Then what is this?" He closed his eyes for a moment, jaw tightening. "This," he admitted in a cracked whisper, "is me breaking my own rules." Her breath caught. When he opened his eyes again, they were darker, softer, more conflicted than she'd ever seen. He lifted a hand and brushed a knuckle down her cheek, so lightly she barely felt it. "You make me forget who I'm supposed to be," he murmured, "and that's dangerous." "For who?" she whispered. "For both of us." Silence stretched between them. He exhaled, stepped back a little, but didn't drop his hand from her cheek. "Rest," he said softly. "You're safe here." "Will you be okay?" she asked quietly. He froze. No one ever asked him that, especially not with sincerity. "I don't know," he admitted. "Because of me." He didn't answer. But he didn't have to. His silence was its own confession. He finally dropped his hand. "Good night, Amira." She swallowed. "Good night, Jaiwan." He stepped out of the room and closed the door gently behind him. She stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, hands trembling from everything he'd just revealed, everything he'd held back, everything he was trying and failing to control. When she finally lay down, she didn't sleep immediately. She listened. She waited. And at some point deep into the night, soft footsteps paused outside her door. He didn't knock. He didn't enter. But he stood there long enough that she felt it. Long enough to know he wasn't as far from her as he pretended. Long enough to make her wonder who exactly was protecting who anymore. Morning came softly, gold light spilling through the curtains, warming Amira's face. She blinked awake slowly, her mind foggy from the deepest sleep she'd had in days. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The soft sheets, the faint city breeze, the quiet hum of a penthouse far above the noise. Then everything rushed back. Jaiwan. The danger. The night they just survived. The almost confessions hanging in the air. She sat up, pressing a hand to her chest. Her heart already raced, anticipating what today might bring, what he might say, or avoid saying. She swung her legs out of bed, stepped quietly into the hallway, and nearly collided with him. Jaiwan stood there, hair slightly messy, wearing a black shirt that stretched across his shoulders. The tattoos on his neck peeked above the collar, dark against his skin. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You're awake," he said. "Yeah," she tucked a curl behind her ear. "Did you sleep?" "A little." She noticed the faint shadows beneath his eyes. She doubted he slept at all. He cleared his throat. "I made breakfast." "You cooked again." He looked almost embarrassed. "It's not a habit." She smiled. "Maybe it should be." He turned away too quickly, but she saw it, the subtle flush in his cheeks. They moved to the kitchen. He'd already set the table, tea, fruit, warm food he must have woken early to prepare. She sat. He sat across from her, but there was tension in the air now, not frightening, not confusing, a different kind. Something unspoken, waiting on the edge between them. She took a small bite. This is good. He watched her for a moment too long. You make everything look better. Her fork paused. It was the closest thing to a compliment he'd ever given her. She swallowed hard. Jaiwan, what happens now? He leaned back, expression shifting, softening, then hardening again like he was waging some internal war. That man last night wasn't operating alone, he said. Someone sent him. Her stomach nodded. For me. For me, he corrected. You were in his path, that's all. But it could have been worse. His jaw tightened. I know. She hesitated. Jaiwan, is this life always going to be this dangerous? Yes, he said, unflinching, but I've survived it for years. And what about the people close to you? He didn't answer. Because they both knew the truth. People close to him didn't survive long. And that truth hung between them like a curse neither of them could break. Slowly, she set her fork down. So what am I supposed to do? Go back to the mansion and pretend none of this happened? No. Then what? He pushed away from the table and stood, packing a slow line across the room. His hand dragged through his hair. His breathing deepened. She'd seen him angry. She'd seen him cold. But this was a man, afraid of the one thing he couldn't control. You don't understand, he whispered harshly. You keep asking me what's going to happen next, but you don't realize you are what's happening, and I can't make sense of it. Her heartbeat stuttered. Jaiwan. I don't want you near this life, he said. I don't even want you near me, but when you're far, I can't breathe. When you're close, I can't think. Her lips parted. Then what do you want me to do? He stopped packing. Turned. And the rawness in his eyes made her breath shatter. I want you safe, he said, and I want you close, and I can't have both. She rose from her chair slowly, each step bringing her closer to him until she could feel the heat from his body, see the tension rippling beneath his tattoos. Then let me choose, she whispered. He swallowed, hard. You don't know what you're choosing. Yes, I do. Amira. She reached for his hand. He flinched at the first brush of her fingers, like he'd been touched for the first time in years, but he didn't pull away. Her voice softened. Let me choose you. His breath caught. He stared at her like she'd said something impossible, forbidden, beautiful. You shouldn't, he murmured. But I want to. Silence. Painful, electric silence. Then, he lifted her hand slowly and pressed it against his chest, right over his heartbeat. You don't understand what you're doing, he whispered, voice strained. I do, she said. I'm choosing the man who protects me, who stayed outside my door, who cooks for me, who tries so hard not to touch me even when he wants to. His eyes closed. She'd hit every nerve he tried to hide. Jaiwan, she whispered, you're not losing control, you're letting someone in. He inhaled sharply. And then everything inside him broke gently, not with violence, not with desperation, but with acceptance. His forehead rested against hers. Not a kiss. Not a claim. A surrender. You're going to ruin me, he breathed. She smiled softly. Maybe you needed to be ruined. He let out a broken, quiet laugh, the first real laugh she'd heard from him. When he opened his eyes again, the war was over. Not because he'd won. Because he'd chosen to stop fighting. His hand came up to cradle her cheek, thumb brushing her skin like he was learning her by touch. If anything happens to you, nothing will. You don't know that. I trust you. Those words hit him harder than any threat ever had. He held her face with both hands now, eyes burning, voice deep and low and steady. Then hear me, Amira. If you stay with all the danger that comes with me, with everything I am, with everything I've done. I know. And you stay because you want to. I do. And not for any other reason. There isn't one. He exhaled shakily, forehead pressing harder into hers. Then you stay, he said quietly, with me. She didn't hesitate. Always. And that single word, that small, whispered promise, sealed everything he tried so hard to deny. Jaiwan pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the first thing in his life worth protecting without calculation, without conditions. A man who trusted no one. Trusted her. A man who let no one in. Let her stay. And for the first time in a long, brutal life, he wasn't alone. And she wasn't afraid. Whatever danger came, whatever shadows waited, they would face it together. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching K-Pop Chronicles.